bad people. They wouldn't do what they're told.
Yes. Oh, on another quick topic, did you see what they did to Obama-Nokio's pet group Acorn this afternoon? They went in undercover, and the lady said she killed her husband. The newest video.
That I didn't see. I mean, I know they got the funding yanked. I don't know anything about somebody killing somebody. I know there's a bunch of CEOs that are committing suicide all of a sudden, supposedly. Theory.
The lady who was in the California location when the pimp and prostitute went in, the prostitute said that she was getting beat up by her other pimp. The gal working at Acorn says, I had a problem like that with an ex-husband. I laid the groundwork, told everybody he was abusing me. Next time he came at me, I took a gun and shot him dead. But I had the groundwork laid and everything, so she never got in trouble.
Well, that sort of thing does happen. I will look into that. I think one of the problems, though, is you're using so many euphemisms. I'm having trouble following exactly what you're saying. Brian, we got to let you go. We got to switch over here to Clarence in Oklahoma. Aloha, Clarence. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Ocio. Well, I'm going to switch back to the overarching topic here, and that is how nations, states act and react to each other. And all this stuff about patriotism and the flag and mom and apple pie is in every country, but this is a relatively new thing on the scene as when I've read history. I say this didn't start till about the 1600s.
I'm sorry, what didn't start till the 1600s?
Where you're fighting for an ideology.
Actually, no, because the fighting for an ideology goes back to the Vatican, which introduced the concept of holy war, where you were fighting for God and religion.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That
goes back to Pope Innocent III.
I'm talking like secular, like
okay,
for the country, for king and country, and all that kind of good stuff.
No, I would disagree with that. I mean, that goes back to Rome.
Well,
I mean, the legionnaires went out there saying, we're bringing the benefits of Rome to these foreign provinces. I mean, they even make fun of it in Monty Python's Life of Brian. What have the Romans ever done for us? Well, viniculture, medicine, roads, architecture, the aqueduct. So
I remember that, and now I can now boil it down to the fine point.
Okay.
The fine point is that's true. That's what they tell everybody.
Yes.
But in reality.
Yes.
What the underlying current is, war's not about ideology, it's about stuff.
Yes, money.
Other people's stuff.
That's exactly right.
And from the time we came down from the trees, like in 2001, A Space Odyssey, they're fighting over a water hole.
That's exactly right. That's exactly correct. We have not really changed all that much from caveman days. Just the saber-toothed tigers are a little different. But I'll tell you what, the situation here is, I mean, since the end of Korea, the United States has had over 30 military interventions around the world. Every time the media tells us we're bringing the benefits of democracy and the American way of life to these people, we have not actually created a single democracy. Every one of them is a puppet ruler held up with fake elections, like we did with Allende, like we're doing with Karzai, like we did with Batista. And it keeps blowing up in our face, and our government seems incapable of learning from their past mistakes, let alone moving into the 21st century on these issues.
I think the reason for that is and I'm not sure, I'm not one for overarching conspiracies or anything. I tend to think that the human beings tend to act like they always have for the last few millennia. But,
well, do you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
psychology. I took some psychology course.
Yeah, basically, when the society, when the society starts getting into very difficult economic times, we sort of fall off that top of that pyramid, and we get down to those base core survival instincts, and we act on them. I think the difference is that our political leaders never get off that ground floor.
They know how to manipulate it.
Yeah, they just say, I want more, I want more, I want more, I want more. I mean, even in this terrible economic situation, they're still finding that 2/3 of the available income gained this last year went to the top 1% of the population. Now, I am basically, fundamentally, a capitalist at heart, but there is something seriously out of balance when we have that much of a divide between the rich and the poor, because a system that far out of balance simply cannot function any longer.
Absolutely, and as I told one of my African-American friends when I was working before I retired, I said there's more than one way to be a slave.
Yes.
And it doesn't need, necessarily, come on the boat and be put in a plantation. We're all slaves.
Yeah, the image of slavery that we are given by the media is specifically and intentionally designed to look so horrible and terrible that we look at it and say, oh, well, that's slavery. That's obviously not what we're living under. And yet, you look back at the historical reality, slaves have been treated very well. I mean, in ancient Rome, they had their own temples and so forth. And I'm not justifying slavery, but slaver societies existed all the way through history. Plato's Republic, where everyone says, oh, what a wonderful idealized system that Plato was thinking about in his Republic. That, too, was described as a slave economy. And anybody in the United States doesn't think they're a slave, you better look at that next 1040. Because you are surrendering half of your life to the government at all levels of society. And that ratio of half for the government and half for yourself is the same ratio of work for self, work for masters that the antebellum slaves had in the Deep South, the medieval serfs lived under, the Roman slaves lived under. Half the time they could work to take care of themselves, the other half of the time they had to work for the masters. We are in that same exact ratio. The paperwork doesn't change it, we just have paper chains instead of steel chains. Clarence, we're going to let you go because I got another story I got to do on this last segment. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. Last segment here, and what an appropriate piece of bump music here, because I want to talk about this UN report on Operation Cast Lead. Now, for those of you who are not remembering what that was all about, last November 4th, America's election day, while we were all distracted between McCain and Obama, and yes, this guy's going to win, and no, that guy's going to lose, and all the rest of it. While we were looking at our own elections, Israel broke the ceasefire with Hamas, went in and attacked Gaza, killed 6 Hamas officials. Hamas then said, well, I guess the ceasefire is over. And then Israel comes back and says, aha, Hamas says the ceasefire is over. Boom. And they start throwing weapons and stuff and white phosphorus all over people. So the United Nations sends in an investigation team on what's going on. Now, I want to read you a direct quote from the Reuters news story about the UN report. This is an education in media bias and propaganda. The headline reads, UN finds evidence of war crimes by both sides in Gaza. First paragraph, United Nations, Reuters, both the Israeli army and Palestinian militants committed war crimes and possibly crimes against humanity during the December-January Gaza war, the United States charged on Tuesday. Okay, here's the deal. And Israel is furious because this 575-page report does mention Hamas and the Gazans a couple of places, but it is overwhelmingly a report of Israel's atrocities. And yet Reuters is trying to present it with this headline and this first paragraph as if the crimes were equal on both sides, which is, of course, the position Israel wants to take. You know, they made us throw white phosphorus on their school children. That kind of attitude. But if you read the rest of the Reuters report, it is all about what Israel was doing. It was all about what Israel was doing. It was a very one-sided conflict. It was a very one-sided atrocity. And now Israel's stamping their feet and sulking that the United Nations is calling them on it, which is, of course, the United Nations' job. But I wanted to point that out there because we're seeing all these reports in the American media that are trying as hard as they can to spin it that the UN report is saying, well, both sides were guilty. And if you read the actual report, get the actual, in fact, I'm not even going to tell you. Find out for yourself. Go online. That report is going to be available. 575 pages. It's a lot of reading to go through, but look at it. It is overwhelmingly Israel that was committing these war crimes. And now they're throwing a tantrum that they've been called on it. All right, we're going to go to the phones. We've got Den on the line. Aloha, Den. Welcome to the show. And if I understand correctly, you're the artist who did the little these little Patriot toy illustrations, these Truth Movement heroes.
Yes, that's right. Hi, Mike. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, thank you for being on here. I can't tell you how much fun we're having with that graphic that you did of myself. We've got it on the webpage. We've got it on T-shirts and coffee mugs. We've even got a Christmas ornament coming out there for us secular, atheistic-type, Christmas-type people.